Imagine this. Late in the evening at a smoky tavern in London. As the music fades in the background, Mick Jagger carefully takes a drink from his chair. The identical question has been posed to him many times. Which singers are your favorites? But something changes tonight. He does not name the typical suspects. He stops. He grins before saying it. 5 names. These names weren't just inspirations, they were obsessions for the guy who strode across stages for 60 years, shared studios with luminaries, and helped define rock and roll swagger. All women, and each one of them were a force of nature. Inspirations and cautions. Mick Jagger was completely rocked by these 5 female singers. The name of the first voice he mentioned, the one that both frightened and excited him? Joplin, Janis. She didn't sing. She exploded. She did not enter a song. She blew off the doors. Denim and whiskey wrapped around Janis Joplin, she was pandemonium. There was more to her voice than grit. Thunder in a bottle was what it was. In 1969, Jagger saw her live performance at Madison Square Garden. With a drink in one hand and heartache in the other, she went out barefoot and with wild hair. Even the great Keith Richards of Never Blinking froze as she struck the chorus of Piece of My Heart. She was a storm, silent. What Mick liked most about her was flame. She was raw without apology. She consumed the microphone instead of flirting with it. She made pain sound like having sex. And anger have the sound of prayer. Janis was no rival to Jagger, who established his reputation on performance, danger, and sex. She was confrontational. He was afraid of her since she was unrestricted. Not disobedient. Free. Just unbridled passion, flaming out of control, with no screenplay or vision. He referred to her as untouchable after that evening. It was because there was no act, not because she was perfect. She couldn't be faked. What about the next female? She gave elegance a wild ride. That voice. Nick's Stevie. In the late 17th century, Fleetwood Mac dominated the charts and Mick Jagger's thoughts were dominated by Stevie Nicks. Together, they went on tour and danced in candlelit hotel bars. On the walls of the ballroom, rumors swirled like their shadows. But it wasn't her beauty or her mystery that captivated Jagger, despite the flirting and celebrity. Her voice was heard. The youngster discusses what it was like to live in the 1950s before asking whether it was all about fashion since youngsters enjoy the era. The haunting spell of Basquiat encircled each sentence and word. She could make even saying goodbye seem like a prophecy, he once said. And he did more than simply see her perform Gold Dust Woman live. Eyes wide from the wings, he gave up like a man in trance. Stevie did not wear a belt. She summoned. She was quiet. She had a captivating personality. Her power came in subdued waves in a society full of yelling frontmen and swaggering celebrities. She didn't suddenly appear. It infiltrated your body. Stevie was unfamiliar to Jagger, whose character thrived on turmoil. Calm and dominant, a slow-motion storm. However, the next lady would hit Stevie like a hammer if he floated. Tina Turner is her name. With thunder in her stride and fury in her gaze, Tina exploded rather than just moving. Jagger had always studied movement, showmanship, and how to light up a stage. However, Tina? The stage seemed to be struggling to keep up with Tina. She was a cyclone covered in muscle and sequins, not a performer. Instead of leaving, she blew up on it. Every scream was a war cry, and every stomp was a thunderclap. She conquered rather than performed. Everything about her, her voice, her presence, her body, was battle. And there was never any opportunity for the fans. She didn't just follow the beat. She molded it to her will, redefined it, and punished it. One of the greatest performers alive, Jagger, felt himself vanish next to her when they eventually shared the stage for State of Shock in 1985. She almost blew him off it, he later said, and everyone who saw it knew she did. She served as a reminder to the globe during those few minutes that when real strength grabs the mic, even legends may be overshadowed. Her energy was unrelenting, her beat was angry, and her voice was muscular. There was perspiration and rage in every note, yet there was never mayhem. Just accuracy. The hurricane she unleashed was within her control. Tina was more than simply a vocalist to Mick. She was a living example of strength, grit, and spirit. She didn't need tricks or lighting. The place was brightened just by her presence. She made no attempt to attract attention. She called for surrender. The voice that sounded like silk poured over a rifle then arrived. Hind, Chrissy. Chrissy provided both polished flair and punk edge to the Pretenders. She could sound seductive even if she spat poison. It was uncommon to find someone who could sound both attractive and menacing at the same time, therefore Mick really loved that dichotomy. She had no intention of pleasing anybody. She wanted you to recoil. When they first met in the early 18th century, everything in rock was either reborn or on fire. Fire was what he anticipated. Steel was what he received. Unforgiving, unrepentant. She was more astute than he was in conversation. Dry, quick, and unafraid. Some singers' shouts may not cut as deeply as her silences. She didn't perspire or beg on stage. She was in charge. Magnetic, cold, and precise. She had an air of someone who didn't give a damn about your feelings for her. And you couldn't take your eyes off it. Nor was it a request when she performed Brass in Pocket. It was a lipstick-wrapped warning. It was more than simply assurance. It was charm cloaked in control. She was one of the few singers who didn't aim to impress, according to Mick. She did not seek praise. She didn't have to. Her presence was commanding. She challenged the audience to keep up with her intense gaze. She often owned more than just the stage. She made it her own by reducing it to her level. He observed Chrissy to see what calm control looked like. The sound of assurance without the need to yell. She was a force field in leather and eyeliner, not simply a front lady. The last name on his list, though? That one was delivered with a grin and maybe a hint of pain. Smith, Patty. Poetry on fire was what Patty was. She did more than sing. She testified, begged, and howled. In the conventional sense, she wasn't a vocalist. She was a preacher with electric poison in her veins, a prophetess with a microphone. Her stage was seized, it wasn't illuminated. In the late 17th, Jagger watched her perform for the first time at CBGB. Her hair was matted, she was barefoot, and her face was glistening with perspiration like battle paint. Being truthful was more important to her than being attractive. She became the moment, not a part of it. Her voice broke. Every syllable seemed like a dare, and they broke and soared. Her rawness, unpredictability, and sheer instability made her extraordinary. Her pitch wasn't what caught his attention the most. She was being defiant. Patty didn't amuse. She went up to him. She forced you to look her in the eye as she stood among the confusion. Like a prayer uttered in the midst of a brawl, her music both seemed holy and vulgar. Aggression and art were involved. To Jagger, whose career had been based on breaking boundaries, sensitivity turned inside out. She was more than just a soulmate. She served as a warning. He didn't feel like a rock star as he saw her that night. At the shrine of something greater, he felt like a pupil. And he came to a realization that evening. He wasn't the most crazy person there. She was. Legends have shared stages with Mick Jagger. He has gazed down stadiums, bathed in cheers, and danced beneath lights that have blazed for 60 years. However, he said that neither the quickest drummer nor the loudest guitar really rocked him to his core. The ladies were the ones. Women who entered the rock scene without asking permission. They did not await an invitation. Their voices, sometimes kind, occasionally harsh, but always memorable, etched their names into its walls. They relied on no one's heritage. Brick by brick, phrase by lyric, scream by stillness, they constructed their own. They whispered like warnings and boomed like thunder. They broke, soared, enchanted, and tormented. They sung with their backs to anybody who ordered them to be quiet, their hearts uncovered, and their fangs bared. And each time, they reminded him that truth, not loudness, is what true power requires. Being great isn't always about hitting hard, it's also about cutting deep. These days, their voices reverberate in every step he takes and every line he writes. Their presence lingers like smoke after a fire, not because he imitated them but rather because he saw something sacred in their chaos and realized that these were the queens who never needed crowns in a world full of kings.